RDM is in a mood. 3 are down, cleric is new. We can't fight a CR22 to die, this way is cruel. Like your mind is saying we're fools. Feel a little upset in just a few. RDM is in a mood. All year round making home brew. I mean, we could have shown some gratitude for times for making tools. Looking up and learning all the rules. Maybe let them play a real cool. Yeah, we may have met or matched. Locked away for real behind a latch. Surrounded in the dark by the undead. Waiting weapons, armor clad. Are we a chance at escaping? Our nervous rogue is bumbling.
I'm not sure when to start because I don't press a button.
Oh, we're good. I think. This happens every time.
Well, what do you know? We're live. Hi, everybody. Have a drink, grab a set of dice, and get ready to roll because this is the Chaotic Neutrals podcast. I'm Flood, and with me are
Annie Mae. Hi, it's been a while.
And Matt, hello. We're bad at this already.
we always are. I don't think it's ever going to get better.
No.
Yeah, you're probably
But today we are going to talk world building.
Yes! World building.
And I think we were talking earlier that really the only person in this group that obsesses over world building is you, Anime.
Yes. Yes. I'm really the only one that does. Because to me it's fascinating to see how all of the metaphorical puzzle pieces just kind of interlock and come together to create this beautiful image of just an entire planet functioning together, an entire society, race of people, anything, you know.
So I think the problem that I usually have with world building is that my players tend to derail whatever I'm working on. So
Yeah.
I don't actually... I don't plan that far ahead because that's more work than I want to put in pre-session.
No, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I find it easier to just improv.
I actually started doing the exact same thing where I would just not do much. But it didn't really have much of an effect because from my perspective, well, at least with the campaign that I was DMing for you guys, everything was building itself. Like the world was having so much developed because of Mac and Andy and everybody else just doing their own stuff. Everybody was doing stuff that I was like, it's just happening. It just does. The world just builds itself at this point.
Well,
Like,
the best work is the ones that where the players do all the work for you.
oh, absolutely. I completely agree. Just realized my phone was still active and sent me a notification. I'm like, shut up!
So, I think on the subject of world building, we should probably focus on you, Anime, and how you built the city and everything. But you know what? I had a question on the tip of my tongue, and it just rolled away.
Oof, sad days.
It'll come back. It'll come back.
Yeah, probably. I think to start off though, I want to figure out what is what's your guys' most extensive experience with world building? Because for me, it goes everywhere and anywhere. So I could gush for hours. So I think we should start with the two people who might not gush as much.
I have no experience world building anything because I've never DM'd anything or thought about, building a whole little fantasy world. I have thought about it, but I've just never bothered because I don't have the attention span for it.
That's fair.
I
feel like as a player, though, there is definitely a hand in world building, especially when you're building backstory.
That is true. That really is true. I've caught myself world building quite a few things into my own backstories for Dungeons and Dragons characters. Just by accident.
I'm not good at backstories either.
It's just natural. Yeah, I do remember you saying that at one point. It might not have been on the podcast, but I definitely remember you saying that.
It takes me a long time to figure out just a setting for a backstory, or even the beginning focus for one.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
So it's a little harder for me.
I mean, it's definitely has to come from a writer's perspective, even if you're not like a avid writer. And as a result, it's definitely a bit harder to work with if you're just not that type of person.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's my weakest thing is I love playing D&D, but when it comes to like backstory and creating a whole story for the character, it gets a little more difficult.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Flo?
Well, I've got a lot of experience as a player because I am one of those people that will write 10 pages of backstory. I forget how long the backstory I sent you for Andy was. It was at least a page, maybe two.
It's been so long, even with it just being having been like a month or two, it's still been so long that I can't remember.
I do know that we were like, 2 months into the game and I hadn't finished writing it because I was just writing so much.
You were doing so much, which, I mean, we still hadn't even come up with your patron yet, and I was like trying so hard to come up with so much. Oh, the patron was probably my favorite and least favorite part because it was just a piece of the world like a major piece of the world that I got to build, but we just couldn't make progress. I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, we can go into like the process that we went through as far as like trying to figure out where we were on the patron, because most of that started with me just sending you all these pictures of like, hey, look at how cool this eldritch abomination is.
Yeah, I remember that. There was a lot of just back and forth with imagery, just pictures that we found on Pinterest that were just like this thing and that thing, and just constantly chucking art back and forth to see. I definitely remember that.
At least lately, have a bit of a Pinterest problem. But,
I've always had a Pinterest problem.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have. It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, as far as Andy goes, though, I feel like that was kind of my big world contribution was the patron.
Yes,
and trying to get that all figured out and squared away.
I don't know when we'll come back to it, so I have a very strong feeling that both of you will probably forget most of the stuff that I share about that game. So there's honestly,
probably,
if you don't mind, I might actually share. I think, okay, I gotta share something with you guys that your patron had a strong effect on my world, stronger than you realized at the time.
Oh.
See, you know the 4 elemental gems that I was referencing and hinting at. Well,
referencing and hinting at you.
They were all over the place. They were all over the place. It was very clear you guys needed to be focused on them. Well, at first I didn't really have a clear idea of what they were. I knew they were all elemental gems that had that were each focused on a different element, right? So you had the water, the air, the earth, and the fire. But I didn't quite have a full grasp on why they had their, special powers. Then you came along, introduced me to your patron, and how they were and after just like coming up with ideas and it into a snowball effect, I eventually came up with, okay, well, your patron is a otherworldly being, so why are they here? Maybe the Fork Claimers brought them forth. Why? To seal its power, to capture its power. How do they do that? Seal it in a crystal. And then it hit me. Wait. That's how they got the elemental gems. They sealed the gods into the crystals. So
Okay,
literally,
that's actually pretty cool.
So-
What?
you,
That's amazing.
yeah, the four claimers, because of you, Flood, I ended up deciding that the four elemental gems were god concealing crystals.
I love what a fucking terror I am on the landscape
Game.
of every game I touch.
I
That's
know,
fucking
I love it.
amazing.
It was
Oh, it's
brilliant.
amazing.
And honestly, that's a large portion of how world building goes. You just kind of have stuff that snowballs and bounces into each other, and little by little they collide and merge and affect one another. Just random plot points and
Yeah.
world building beats that you didn't even think would be connected, and then all of a sudden, boom, you've got something new. Matt,
So I have
Oh.
like a small example
okay.
of something that I worked on. The big one's going to take way too long for me to talk about, and my voice is too shot to actually go into that.
That's
But,
fair.
So I was running a homebrew game, and I knew where I wanted it to start. With essentially just a group of people shipwrecked on an island, and I had read something in the monster manual about Kuo-toa and their ability to create gods from their imagination, right?
Oh yeah, I've been hearing about that.
So
recently.
I went with that and decided that I really wanted to throw an aboleth at the players. So I decided, okay, well, the Kuo-toa essentially created an aboleth with their insanity, and started with all that.
Okay.
And then I realized, okay, well, that leaves the party underground fighting this aboleth, but they still don't have a way off the island. And I had to think of what comes next pretty quickly at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, okay, we're just going to keep going down. We're going to go into the Underdark. And what lives in the Underdark? Okay, Drow. So I read up a bit on the Drow and realized like they're a matriarchal society and all these things. So I decided, okay, well, I enjoy political intrigue. I'm going to make this fight between these 4 Drow women for power in a Drow city. And so I created the characters first and their personalities, and then decided, okay, well, why does each one of them want power? One of them was I think she was some form of paladin, and she was the very just vicious, rule with an iron fist type of person. And I decided, okay, well, she's going to be in charge of slaves and the various fighting, entertainment, gladiatorial things.
Okay.
And I assigned the group's fighter to be her slave. And then I had another one that was it was her twin, who was a cleric, more the knowledgeable politician type, so still definitely evil, but less overtly violent. And I think we had I forget what character I assigned to her, but so there was the rivalry between those 2 sisters.
Okay.
And then because I am a sucker for playing cults, apparently, I decided I need a warlock here because I must have a warlock in
why not?
everything that I do.
Warlocks make everything interesting.
Absolutely. And I had a player that had a character that was very much your non-standard adventurer. Big, dumb guy that just, I think he was a bard, just literally, it kind of drove me up a wall as a GM, because I really just struggled with understanding the character.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, okay, you know what? He's had a lot of trouble clicking with the party. I'm going to target him with this cult. And oh boy, when that campaign ended shortly thereafter, the one thing I got from all the players was what the hell was going on with that crazy drow. So that was 3 of them, and then the 4th, I decided, I just didn't really have a personality for her or anything, but I needed something that went against the rest of the party, and my player was one of those, like, you know, very virtuous, you know, do good for good's sake kind of characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I am very proud of this moment. I had no idea what I was doing with this drow, and took that player into her house and just, I don't know why I thought of this, but just turned to the player and said, okay, welcome to the Resistance, and then dropped the session there.
Ooh.
What?
Oh.
So I then at least had a week to figure out what the hell that meant, but it was really good spur of the moment world building. If I pat myself on the back there.
Oh, it sounded like it. It
just
sounds amazing.
Yeah, because I like had these 3 really well developed, very evil drow, but I wanted them to have at least one other person, because I had 4 players. I wanted, you know, each of them to
have a
to each have a master,
mm-hmm.
and I wanted at least one of them to not hate who they were working for.
Interesting.
That's amazing.
Fascinating.
That reminds me of, because I've been reading the Dritz D&D books.
Oh.
The story books. The Dritz series. And it's all about Dark Elves and the Society in the first book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's terrifying. Just straight terrifying to read.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a little nightmare realm.
I think I might have one of the Dritz books, but I don't know. I'd have to look at it.
I'm currently working on the I'm currently like halfway through the second one, Exile.
Honestly, like, even if you're not much of a creative writer, I feel like just stealing from books and things that you enjoy, like, you know, everybody pretty much knows Lord of the Rings, and
Oh yeah.
that's your basic medieval fantasy sort of thing going on there.
I do take a lot of inspiration for stuff when I create characters and the way I think about some things.
I mean, Dungeons and Dragons was straight up based on Tolkien's works, so like Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion and all that. So I mean, D&D itself is an inspiration. It was inspired by other stuff.
If it's good, you might as well steal it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There's something that really bothers me where a lot of people are like, oh, we're starting in a tavern, how cliche. And my immediate thought is, well, yeah, because it works.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, it does. It does.
I feel that the same concept applies to world building in general, because, you know, the tried and true formula. You build a town, you put a tavern in it, you put a store in it, and you create some sort of local leader that is either, you know, really good or a total evil bastard.
Yeah.
You know, it just, there's a formula that has been tried over and over again, and no reason to fix what doesn't, you know, what's not broken.
I mean, for the campaign I was DMing last year, I started it with a tavern, but it was one of the most interesting tavern beginnings I had ever experienced in Dungeons and Dragons. It was one of the most interesting beginnings, period, that I'd ever experienced with Dungeons and Dragons. It was a large part of it was because everybody was all doing their own thing. Nobody needed to interact with each other. Everybody did, but they each had their own reasons, and they didn't interact at the same time. They each had one-on-one, or, at most three party members interacting at one time. But for the most part, it was just two people interacting at one time in the tavern to begin with. And the tavern was owned by one of the players. It was straight up run by one of the players. One of the players was acting as a paid entertainer. Another one had just been staying the night, and the last was actually serving the tavern owner as their sponsored gladiator. So it began one of the most interestingly ways possible I'd ever seen, and it was in a tavern. And I'm like, the tavern just works. It's where everybody goes to just hang out, have fun, have a drink, and it's where interesting things start. So yeah, absolutely.
And you can always bet on at least half the players being alcoholics.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You laugh, Matt, because you know it's true.
Yes.
You join in on that half of the group.
That's why I play more along the lines of dwarf. I normally play dwarves mostly. Is usually what I play.
I've never actually played a dwarf, but I really ought to. Actually, speaking of dwarves and world building,
you know what? I've never played one either. Now that you mention it.
Speaking of dwarves and world building, though, I have to say, of all of the D&D and Tolkien works and lore and all that, dwarves are, from my perspective, the most fascinating pieces of any world in medieval fantasy. I don't know why. I think it's because of they're so similar to humans, just modern day humans in so many ways, but they're just different enough to where it fascinates me. And their architecture, if you want to get into world building through architecture, study the dwarves. The dwarves carve entire cities out of the insides of mountains, and their architecture is so perfectly smooth, and it's all got rigid lining. And I could gush about dwarves for hours, but I won't, because we don't have hours.
I think a lot of people gravitate towards dwarves in that sense because elves are kind of pricks.
And they're almost otherworldly. If you really think about it,
they are aliens. They are
very alien. I know they're not like this, but I've even considered, in my mind, I naturally assume them to be slightly taller than the average human, which I don't think is actually canon at all. But it's
Normally elves are slightly shorter.
But from my perspective, they just
seem,
so alien that it just seems natural.
Okay, so I haven't been playing much D&D lately. I have been playing a lot of Star Wars.
Okay.
And have you guys have seen all the, the first 6 movies?
Yeah. The mainline films. Yeah. Prequels and originals.
The Kaminoans, those long cloners, they are, in my opinion, the epitome of, if elves were aliens.
Huh. I can actually see that.
They just have this, ethereal grace, and the way that they speak is so fluid and lovely and intelligent. It really just feels unnatural without and unsettling.
It's uncanny.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like there's something close about them. Yeah, there's something off. And I just realized that I don't have my pop filter on, so boy, I hope you guys are enjoying all of my plosives.
Honestly, that was the I haven't been hearing any popping or anything, so it should be good.
Okay, that's good at least.
I think we're good. I think. Okay. We're far enough in. I gotta start getting into a little bit of a ranty mode now because we're far enough in that I'm kind of
Rant.
there. I'm right there. So I think to start. So from my perspective, world building is so much more than what so many people consider it to be. Like this whole time, the two of you have been specifically focused on Dungeons and Dragons, which this is a Dungeons and Dragons podcast, of course. Why would you think anything else? But from my perspective, when I think of world building, I can't center on any one thing. I just think world building in general. That doesn't matter what it is, unless it's Mario, because there is very little. Super Mario does not have much world building at all. There's a plumber who saves a princess from a giant turtle. That's about much world building as you get from Mario.
I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you there.
I know there's a lot more. There's a lot more
so
involved.
Much more.
There's a lot more involved.
I don't even play Mario games.
If you get into the spin-off series like Paper Mario and the Mario RPGs, absolutely, there is a lot more. But I'm talking about like mainline 2D Mario. There is not much there. There's not much there at all. But to get back on track.
No.
To get back on track, because that's neither here nor there. World building is just literally anything and everything that takes an effect, either directly or indirectly, on a just on the world, on a world. It doesn't matter if it's like, if a character exists, if a place exists, if there's an event that takes place, if something suddenly comes into existence or ceases to exist. It's just like things like, does music just naturally play in the air in your world? Just stuff like that. And anything counts as world building. And from my perspective, it's so fascinating to get into those small details. Like, to move away from Dungeons & Dragons for a minute, I will bring it back around, but I was attempting to write a comic at one point. It didn't last too long, but at some point, I had created these monsters called ghouls, which were soulful creatures, soulless creatures. They were soul devourers. They ate other creatures' souls in order to live, because they do not have a soul, and they cannot naturally produce soul energy themselves. So they consume the souls of others. Now, because of this, I decided that these creatures could not interact with certain materials, like metal and plastic, because those are soulless materials. They do not have a soul. Plastic because it's super processed, and metal because while it is a natural piece of a naturally formed item of the world, we slowly purify it over time in order to remove more and more of the world. So I decided metal itself is not actually a soulful material. It's all of the other materials mixed in with metal. Then I came across something. The main characters were running, for this one comic I was trying to write, we're running through a building made mostly of concrete. And it hit me. Is concrete a soulful material? And this is where the world building aspect really kicked in, because I had to figure out, can these ghouls interact with concrete? So I did some studies, figured out that concrete is mostly made of rock and rubble and gravel, water, and cement. So then I had to figure out, what is cement made out of? And I figured out it's super processed rock and water, more of the same stuff. But because it's so super processed, I figured cement is not a soulful material. But concrete is, because concrete is actually made up of more gravel and rock and water than cement. So figuring all of that out is all world building. Everything I just explained is world building. And when I first did that and first realized that I had been building the world just by doing all of that research, I was like, oh my gosh, this goes so deep. And Dungeons & Dragons goes even deeper with its stuff because it's already built out and has been existing for decades, right? So Dungeons & Dragons, you can be going so deep into your studies for this type of thing. One of the things that I find most fascinating is how do creatures function physically within your world? Because I find myself very naturally drawn towards biology. Not in the sense of like how is the anatomy of creatures, but how they interact with the world. So, for example,
more ecology.
I honestly don't know the definition.
Biology is going to be. Sorry, this is what one of my degrees is in. So
no, you're fine. It'll help me in the future.
Ecology is a subset of biology, focusing on the interactions of organisms together with their environment.
Okay. Yeah, so that is definitely the thing that I find more fascinating. Is how they... Yep, ecology. So, an example of something that I've looked into, or thought about, not looked into, is how do dwarves function underground? Because it hit me.
Where does the meat come from?
Where does the air come from? They clearly breathe.
The big questions.
They have to breathe, but they don't have these giant gardens. They don't grow plants. They actively dislike plants. So I was wondering, how does this work? How do dwarves breathe underground? And I came up with my own personal solution, which I view as my own world building for Dungeons & Dragons, my own homebrewed world building. It's completely irrelevant for the most part, but it's still there. I decided dwarves do not breathe oxygen. They breathe another gas, which exists in the world in above the earth just as much as it does underground, so that they can, no matter where they are, because we see them functioning perfectly fine above ground just as much as under. So, obviously, it has to be a gas that is produced en masse through the entire planet. I don't know what gas this would be yet. I haven't looked into it that far. But then I also decided dwarves have to require far less of that gas than most other creatures require oxygen in order to be able to breathe.
Is that why they're small?
That's very well possible why they're small. And
this
that's
is
why
extremely interesting to think about.
And it's
I always
why
figured they had ventilation.
I mean, that's a good explanation, but then when you consider how deep underground dwarves can get, like they carve out entire mountains.
Some can go down as deep as to like magma beds and everything.
Magma
lakes
so
be around all that. So
that is a good argument, and definitely one that would work for more surface dwelling based dwarves. So I imagine there are probably sub races that probably do that, but then there are others that live deeper underground that just breathe less of a different type of gas. And it also might explain in Tolkien lore why Gimli says that dwarves are wasted over cross country and they're more dangerous over short distances. They're very natural sprinters. It's because they require far less to breathe, but because of that, they don't have as much they're not pumping as much through their body, so they could probably lose their breath a lot easier because they just don't need as much breath in the first place.
This is just like straight mind blowing to me to think about right now.
I don't know. I'm still trying to like get over the whole cement is different from concrete.
It is.
Debacle.
It
is.
Technically, it
that
is.
blew my mind, and I was like, "Ugh."
I didn't know.
I didn't know what.
Now you
didn't know
do.
it
You
either.
learn something new every day.
I know, right? It was weird when I figured that out. I was like, oh, what is
Okay,
cement?
so
You hear what cement?
Has world building ruined your Google search history as much as it has ruined mine?
Actually, no, because my form of world building is actually mostly mental, and I'm not in my head, not crazy. Two different types of mental. It's because of the fact that I mostly world build in my head, I am thinking of things on a more vague scale, like dwarves must breathe a different gas. I don't study. I didn't look into what type of gas because to me that was irrelevant at the time, at least. Now I might go looking it up because I'm actually curious. But
I'm not going to Google right now.
but
Oh yeah, sure. You're definitely not going to Google right now.
But I am definitely I definitely don't do anywhere near as much Google searching simply because for me it's more of a spur of the moment, just in my head. Well, how does this work? How does that work? And how does this affect that? And just based off of the information I already have and information I could possibly put together on my own. However, every now and then I will go searching something that I'm like, this might get my FBI agent a little bit of a suspicion.
My FBI agent is having a damn field day.
I mean, I found the gases that are generally most prevalent in like mines and stuff, which underground. So, if you want to hear them, it's carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, hydrogen, hydrogen sulfide, oxygen, methane, nitrogen, nitrogen dioxide, and sulfur dioxide.
Well, there you go. They are carbon dioxide.
I was thinking that, yeah.
Plenty of it in the, standard atmosphere as well.
Yeah. Which, isn't that the same thing that plants consume?
Yeah.
So, that's why
that mean
they
a
don't
dwarf
eat
is a
plants.
plant?
That's why they don't like plants.
They're carnivorous plants. Dwarves are just carnivorous alcoholic plants.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
It's canon now.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, I love it. That is
What is wrong
a
with us?
beautiful piece of world building. There is nothing wrong with us. We
That's
have just made a
fucking
glorious
amazing.
discovery.
Dwarves are alcoholic carnivorous plants.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, we need to memorialize that phrase somewhere in our chat.
I'm good.
Throw it into one of our random off topic.
I'm gonna put a new channel that just
Out
says
of context.
random quotes.
Yes. Oh yes, beautiful, beautiful.
There, I have memorialized it in the general chat
Oh,
for
good.
which we can just copy that into the other one.
Sweet. Oh, that is perfect.
Oh God,
Okay,
that's just weird.
that is weird, but it is it's a world building, and it's my favorite kind of world building. The stuff that you didn't think was important, but once you think about it, it's nothing. There's nothing else in the world. That is the only thing.
I'm never gonna look at dwarves the same way again.
I know, right? Oh, I love it.
That's amazing. That's perfect.
Now, to move on to a different type of world building, world design. I've been having to do this recently because I've been preparing a one-shot for the other D&D show I'm a part of, TP Chaos. Go check that out.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless plug is over. But for that, I've had to create a dungeon for the one-shot that I'm playing through. And I ultimately decided that in this one-shot, there are going to be a set of angels, right, that come to the parties and are like, hey, listen, we have a little sister who's kind of locked herself up in a demi-plane, and she hates all three of us. Can you go get her for us? Because we kind of need to get her out of there. So I'm going to have the party go to this demi-plane, which the little angel created for herself to hide in, and it's going to be a castle. I didn't know what this demi-plane was going to be initially. I had no idea until I got, for Christmas last year, the Game Master's Book of Random Encounters by Jeff Ashworth. It is a godsend of a book. My parents found it at a hobby store randomly, for some reason. I think they said, it might have been, actually, it might have been Joanne's craft store? I can't remember. But it has a bunch of pre-made one-shots, firstly, which I'm not using, because I had actually already begun planning before I got this book. But these one-shots all have pre-made maps and encounters, which is amazing. But what makes it even better is you can literally rip all of these maps out of the one-shots and throw them into anything. Like, I'm just flipping through here. There's an outdoor theater. They've got an outdoor theater just sitting here, a full image and everything. Little notes on it, numbered notes too. Even at random, like, roll tables, tables you could just roll on to have small effects, like variant encounter, optional to play, plays the thing. Okay, it's just a random encounter table that's completely optional. It's really cool. So I was flipping through this book. It's absolutely amazing. And at some point, I came upon a section which is titled, let me find it. Where is it? Ah, here it is. Nope. No. Oh wait, am I past it? I think I passed it. I just flipped to the back to the beginning of the book. The index. Where are you? Where is the freaking index? It was
I love
something
that we can hear the pages flipping as you're searching.
Oh, you can? That's hilarious. That is
That's great.
That is perfect. That is I'm keeping that in there.
It's amazing.
Where what the heck?
It's kind of funny because you said like an angel that was like living in a castle, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm going to have Castle on a Cloud from Les Mis stuck in my head for like the next 24 hours.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is.
I will send you a link. But also you should just, either watch the movie or watch the show because you need culture, sir.
Okay. I'll find culture
just one of those
later.
musicals that everyone should know.
I grew up on musicals, actually, because my parents just loved them to death and always had me and my siblings sit down and watch them with them. So I'm surprised I don't know this one. Well,
I'm very
but I found
disappointed in you.
I found it. So it's in the
Musicals
homes,
are not
hideouts,
my thing.
labs, and layers section of the book. And it's this specific subsection is titled Variant Castles. So flipping through the entire book, I find this Variant Castles section. And I'm flipping through, and it's the only section that I find that has rooms built and designed to be connected in any way you see fit and to be reworked in any way you see fit. Literally, they have tables that you can roll on to re-theme the rooms. Like, there's one listed in these roll tables that's called like a torture chamber or something like that. I just saw that and was like, dude, there isn't even a map here, but I can already think of a way to make that look interesting. And I ended up using that in the map. This book is amazing. This variant castle section has allowed me to build a 3-level castle within a couple of weeks. The only thing I'm missing are encounters, which I just started this week. Everything else I had done within 2 weeks, which I was like, all of the rooms were put together, what the rooms were for, why they were there. I even was able to build the castle in such a way where everything lined up very similarly with the rooms. I had there's one section that has a library and a dining hall that are in the same basic shaped and sized rooms. And I just put the dining hall on the first floor, and directly above that, using the staircases, I put on top of that the library, which leads to the second floor, which is the living quarters of the floor, or of the castle. And I was able to build this entire castle with in-depth design and everything, just using the pre-made rooms of this book. And it was so easy and simple and fascinating. And it is definitely a godsend of a book if you can get it. If you are a DM and you can get this book, do so, because it has a bunch of pre-made maps that are just really useful. But to get back onto the world building, the fact that I was able to find all of the rooms I needed for each level, and then I was able to decide what level was themed around. The first floor is just the general. It's the Great Hall. There's the kitchen. I forget what it's called. Like the meeting room, the war room, and then there's the dining hall. And it's just the general. This is the basic working floor. This is where everybody is in the middle of the day. Then the second floor, which is the top floor, is the living quarters. It's where you have all of the bedrooms. You have baths and privies, and you have the training rooms, the stock rooms, the library, just basic lounges, and then the basement is the dungeon, where you have the main jail cells, which are extra strong. You have the secondary jail cells, which aren't quite as strong and well protected and easy to monitor. You have the torture chamber, and the guards barracks are also down there, because of all the places I would want my guards barracks, probably right beside the dungeon, because if the prisoners started to get out, I would want the guards to be able to respond immediately. So I was able to do all of this world building using this map that I created, using these pre-made rooms, and it was fascinating to me to just see how much world building I was able to do using just the basic layout, right? Or just laying out the foundation and building out this castle. It's just fascinating. It's a different type of world building that I had never considered before. But when you really think about it, it's almost a vital one because it decides where everything will be in your D&D maps, in your film sets, your game boards, your the buildings in your world, just in general. And it was fascinating.
I gotta say, my least favorite part of world building is building the maps.
I can appreciate that. I definitely, that is absolutely not the most fun part for me either.
Usually what I'll do is I'll go theater of the mind and just map out like a room or two that I think there's going to be combat in, and I'll put as much detail as I can into that one room. But otherwise, I just don't want to build it. I don't want to build a dungeon. I don't want to build anything.
See, if anything were to ruin my Google search history, it would be my searches for random Dungeons and Dragons maps. I literally just go to Google and just search for whatever themed map I need, and I have to put in so many searches to find the right map that I want, right? It's that combined with me searching images of characters. I'll search murderous barbarian or a murderous orc barbarian, or you know, whatever description can come to your head. I might have searched it by this point.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't know whose FBI agent is having more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, my FBI agent has to deal with a lot of how to start a cult searches.
Oh.
I swear there's nothing going on behind the curtain.
That's Can I get in on this cult? Oh wait, this is on stream. We're live, man. I've just shared that to the entire universe.
What?
Yeah,
I didn't even catch it.
Asking to join a cult.
It's easy. I mean, I've literally, when I made
What's
Andy,
it about?
the next thing I did was make a
cult.
list of how to recruit.
Mm-hmm.
And
You gotta have a good pitch going first.
well, that's what I think we were talking about it at some point, and I was like, yeah, no, I need Andy to meet Eliza because Eliza's the perfect target.
Mm-hmm.
She really is. She really is.
Yeah, no, she is primed for indoctrination. I could have done so much evil.
See, Eliza actually started out as a very capable and what's the word? Independent rogue, thief, crime lord within the city, despite being so young. But then through a series of unfortunate events,
All of them
changed.
named Mac.
Yeah. Actually, Mac and Farquhar. Ugh. Farquhar has
Honestly,
a pretty
Mac
strong hand
did
in that
all
too.
of the heavy lifting for me to get into this game because it was so easy for me to find my place and be like, I know whose fun I'm going to ruin.
Oh, absolutely. That was a glorious one.
If we do get to play that game again, and with my schedule changing, I don't know how available I'll be.
Mm-hmm.
I am just waiting for the day that Mac and Andy have to fight.
Yeah. That's gonna be a fascinating day. It's also gonna be fascinating when everyone's patrons meet up.
Oh, shit.
Oh yeah, that's right. Our party's
forgot.
like 3 different warlocks.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of, Matt, do you mind if I get into that, or do you still want to keep your stuff secret?
No, go right ahead.
Oh, Dugnara is one of my favorite patrons. Oh, she's so fun. She's the
fork claimer, isn't she?
She's a fork claimer.
like the undead fork claimer?
Yeah, she's an undead fork claimer lich.
Yeah.
I don't remember if we've ever talked about her before because it's been so long.
I don't think we have talked about her on here at all, or as a group ourselves.
I love Duke Nyarer. I created. We had to randomly generate a name for her on fantasy generator.
Fantasy name generator.
Yeah, because
Is that why I still can't figure out how to pronounce it?
Yes.
Yes.
I pronounce it like this: Dug Nyar Ur. Or roar.
There were some sounds in there that don't exist in the English tongue.
Exactly. It's not an English name. It's a four-claimer name. But yeah, there was so much I've done with her that I don't know if I'll ever get to do. One of my favorite things, Matt. So the first thing is that I think I told you, Matt, that if you did what she asked, she would give you an enhancement, a four-claimer enhancement.
I don't think we ever made it to that. Made a decision about what I got in return.
I
don't remember myself.
I don't remember specifically if I had told you this or not, but she was going to promise you, in exchange for doing what she asked, a four-claimer enhancement, which is natural for their race, according to the Fool's Gold lore. And I kind of wanted you to get to that point, but I knew that was going to be a ways away. But there was something else I did. I had to figure out, how is this four-claimer a lich? So I had to think, and I had to think hard, and I came up with an answer. I had come up with the lore that she is one of the most intelligent and brilliant-minded four-claimers in my world. Because of this, she was able to experiment on herself a lot and survive with ease. She did the unthinkable in the four-claimer societies. She gave herself multiple crystal enhancements. Now normally you only have one, and it's placed where, like, in your gut, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after getting that one, she later in life gave herself another one in her forehead, where her brain is. So she's now enhanced her brain and her lifespan. Normally, these crystals enhance their lifespan to, like, I think it was like a few hundred years. It super extends their life, and if you remove it, it drops their life. And the longer they are without their crystals, the faster they'll die, right? To a point where they're of no return, I believe. But then, later in life, she gave herself 2 more enhancements, replacing both of her eyes. So now she has 4 crystals in her body, which is how she's made herself immortal. Here's the fun part. I gave this mechanical importance. If ever the players had a conflict with Dugnarer and had to fight her, an easy solution to beating her, if they understand how four-claimers work, is removing her crystals. Now, obviously, you have to get close enough to actually remove them. But if you can remove a crystal, it removes, I believe, it drops her life to the end of the year, to a single year. If she can get it back in time, she'll extend it back. But if you remove 2 crystals, it drops it down to a month. Remove 3 crystals, a week. All crystals, she has a day to live.
Huh.
That's really brilliant.
I was
That's
like,
really making me want to play a campaign in the Fool's Gold world.
I would love to, which I'm I'm getting the setting. I'm getting the physical book.
Yeah, I know. You need to make a game out of it.
I know.
I don't know. At this point, what it makes me want to do is fight your patron.
I'll just drop her in the Fool's Gold world and just be like, go find her. But yeah, I built her with mechanical importance. Like if, I wasn't just building her for the sake of just, having her in the world just thematically and aesthetically. She has mechanical relevance as well. On top of that, she actually has, like, a whole lot of machines. That's her main thing. She's not so much magically focused as she is technologically focused, but she does have mechanical, or magical machines, right? She's kind of like an artificer, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But more advanced. And rich.
Sorry.
So, I decided that her main means of communication are through machines that she sends out to, well, specifically Caldor, because he's the only one that she interacts with. But if you were to ever find her, she would be in a giant lair that is filled with machines, crawling and walking all over the place, doing work, all of this stuff. And if
the lair actions for combat and stuff,
and just like, I never actually got into that mechanically because it didn't cross my mind until now.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly,
Write down that evil idea.
I would have done so much when it finally came time to prepare a lair. If you guys ever got into a conflict with Duke Nyarer, I would have world built that so hard. I would have built so much into that. She would have had the ability to communicate with all of her machines wherever she is and wherever they are in the lair. She could have commanded them, seen through them. She could have had them fight. Any of them could have been built with a combat relevance. She could have an entire militia, army, military, just waiting to jump out. She may have been.
Feel like
she may have been for the past because she's existed for the past 3,000 years. Real quick, she may have been slowly building an army to fight the insects, which pushed her out of her home.
I feel like the stuff that is in the DM's guide about the plane, I think it's called Mechanus, is stuff that you could definitely pull from and pull inspiration from.
How bad is it that I've never read the Dungeon Master's Guide?
It's not bad at all.
I've read almost nothing. It's almost
honestly most
untouched.
DMs only have the DM's guide for magic items.
I don't even use it for magic items. I create my own stuff. Or have the players tell me what they want.
I have a really strong affinity with how the Feywild was described in that book. And there are actually mechanical things included for those things. Like for Feywild, there's actually you guys will find out in your game if we get to that point.
Yeah. Now I've already visited the Feywild in another game, and let me tell you, it is a heck of a place.
Did you come back from the Feywild?
We did, because we weren't there for very long. We were basically.
And how much time passed?
I think we decided about 8 weeks.
Was that how much time you spent in the Feywild, or how much time passed while you were gone?
We spent like a day there.
So I had like a full sit down with yet again another one of my warlocks. With she had gotten forcibly dragged into the Feywild and came across a member of her patron's species. Oh. And they literally sat down, they had tea. My warlock was burned alive twice, which is a story for another day. And then when I got back from the Feywild, only a couple of seconds had passed, and I actually beat my I beat my party back to the surface. Well, while they were thinking to themselves, "Oh God, how do we get Saoirse back?" and they got up to the street level and they were like, well, "How is she here?"
Where'd you come from? Where'd you come from? You would not believe the day I've had.
Literally, just I will have to tell the story on another episode of being burned alive twice.
Absolutely, random things
If
that happen.
if I haven't told it already,
I've never heard
That'll
this
be
story.
A hell of a title for a video. When Flood got burned alive twice.
The weirdest stuff that's
it's,
happened to us in D&D.
I would have to think on what the weirdest is, because I don't think being burned alive twice is it.
Honestly, I can believe that.
Oh God. Thinking about it, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah,
I mean, first
with
off,
my history.
yeah, first off, cults. But then second, it's Dungeons and Dragons. I've seen weirder.
Somehow the cults have not been my weirdest stuff. Like, that much I know.
I mean, I will say that there was one weird thing that I'd not been a part of. This was actually in the D&D game, the D&D show that I had watched that got me into D&D 5e. One of the players was playing, or they were playing through Curse of Strahd, and one of the players dies, but his soul can't move on because he's trapped in Barovia.
Yep,
So
Barovia has a special mechanic where the soul can't leave.
Yeah, so he's constantly possessing different people, and at one point he possesses one of the other party members, and they're just kind of going back and forth with it just the whole time, and it's freaking hilarious because it's actually the person who's died. The player who's died is a very experienced D&D player, and the player he's possessing has never played Dungeons and Dragons before. So it's a very entertaining experience.
It's I know we're crunching on time, but it's been over an hour.
I think, unless there's any final thoughts to get out, I think we should start thinking of our craziest D&D stories.
You're probably right. If I sat here for just a few minutes, I could probably come up with another thing to rant about, but I don't think that's what we're aiming for. So
Unfortunately, my throat is killing me because I've been sick.
yeah, so I probably just shouldn't share any final thoughts other than please go pick up the Game Master's Book of Random Encounters if you're a Dungeon Master, because it is a godsend of a book.
I feel like, just anything by that author. I've seen, not just that one. I believe he has some other similar books.
Oh.
Am I correct? I think the stream ended.
What? No.
Nope. It's gone to the stream ending screen.
Oh, it's going to... Got it. Well, I guess that makes it official. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, before we get on another topic.
I figured I did that while we wound down, while we're waiting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
That's fair.
That's why I switched it over. But, yeah.
Consequence abound, you can't redo it.